There are still billions of dollars available for businesses through the Employee Retention Credit Federal Tax Credit Program. Stenson Tamadon has helped companies with less than 500 employees retrieve over $3.4 billion in tax credits through employee retention credits. Call Stenson Tamadon today at 866-934-8461 today to start your application. That's 866-934-8461 to apply. Call now.
Welcome to an AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, my guest is AJ Merrifield. He is the Chief Operating Officer of the REMI Group. He is also one of our AutoSuccess Veterans and Vehicles honorees this year. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Brian.
Well, AJ, let's dive right in.
Okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career path that has gotten you to where you are today with the REMI Group?
Wow. So my career path has been varied and very interesting, to say the very least. I like to say my life has been many things, but boring has not been one of them. Mm-hmm. I started off in the IT field back in the 90s, worked my way up to, I was the senior manager for high availability clustered services and hardware engineering for the world's largest web hosting firm. In fact, if you remember, on the automotive side, if you remember when the Toyota Prius first came out, the only way you could order it was on a website. And it was my team that designed and built and deployed the servers that you actually ordered the Prius on. So did that, and then September 11th happened. And prior to working at that company, I'd been a network consultant and had worked with finance and government a lot. So I knew people both at the Trade Center and the Pentagon. And it really kind of hit really close to home. So I put in my notice, quit that job, joined the military, and spent a decade in the military, did multiple tours of Iraq. Then got out, went to actually purchase a Harley Davidson, and ended up leaving without the bike but with a job, and worked my way up very quickly from sales to sales manager to F&I manager, and did that for a while. Then got recruited away from that to go work for Xerox Business Services, worked my way up to senior VP there. Got recruited away from that to go work for a little retailer you may have heard of before. They're really up and coming, called Amazon.
Really?
If you haven't heard of them, I think you're going to hear good things about them. They're on the growth path. Then left there to go back to Harley Davidson, and spent some time there as an F&I regional director. Then left that to go be the chief operating officer of a holding company managing 27 companies in 9 states. Then left that to actually co-found the REMI Group, which is where I'm at right now.
Awesome.
So kind of a strange, circuitous path, but I'm glad where I ended up where I am.
Nice, nice. Wait, before we dive into the business side of this interview, I'd like to ask you, just what do you do for fun when you're not working?
Oh God.
What's something you really enjoy doing?
So if there's one problem I have, it's trying to find the time for all the hobbies that I have. Mm-hmm. I do photography, I paint. I've been lucky enough to be really successful in both. Do martial arts, I skydive, I scuba dive. I've got a dog and a cat, and of course love spending time with them, but been into travel, and I collect watches and just kind of a lot of different stuff. It's just a matter of finding the time and money for all of it.
Yeah, you're very well-rounded.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. Hobby ADHD is another way.
Yeah. So AJ, what does REMI Group stand for?
So REMI is actually an acronym. It stands for Real Estate Mortgages, Insurance, and Investments, which are the building blocks of a cohesive wealth management strategy. We tend to take a kind of a quarterback approach, as we call it, where we want to be the ones who are directing the plays. And instead of being very hyper-focused on one area, for example, assets under management, we want to be the ones who are finding the absolute best experts, best products, best tactics, techniques, and procedures to really kind of help our clients to build their wealth, protect their wealth, grow their businesses, and protect their businesses. Mm-hmm. So if you look, for example, most companies are very hyper-focused on one area only, whether that be company profitability, company retention, whether it be tax avoidance, tax mitigation, whether it be assets under management. We take the view that all of them have to be interrelated. And so, we've kind of been really lucky to find the best experts, find the best products, and kind of bring them all together and bring them to our clients for their success.
Great. Well, let's talk about attracting people. A lot of businesses across the United States are struggling with attracting people for every position, but let's focus more on those key positions, the ones that really will help you grow your business into the future. How do you attract the talented people are more sought after now than ever? Mm-hmm. How can a business and how can REMii Group help a business to attract those special talented individuals?
And that's the thing is a lot of folks look at the people that they have in the positions right now, and they think about holding on to them, or they focus just on attracting new folks. But it's kind of surprisingly to us, we find a lot of businesses aren't focused on both retaining the ones you currently have and finding the next batch of folks that you need. Mm-hmm. And we think it's really important to do both. One of the things that we look at is attracting new hires. Let's face it, there is an absolute workers market right now when it comes to employability. Everybody right now is fighting for those right people. Mm-hmm. You can go out and you can hire, the first person you find. But one of the things that we find, and studies have shown, the wrong hire will hurt you 10 times more than not having anybody in that position. A wrong hire is basically a cancer. And it takes a lot more work to get rid of that person and then replace them with the right person. So if you can take the time to find and attract the right people, then it's going to do you much better in the long run. So part of that is attracting them. What we've found is one of the biggest keys right now, one of the things that really sets companies apart is their benefits package. If you look, most employees aren't just looking at the bottom dollar, but they're looking, what does this company bring to me? One thing that we've been working with a lot of firms on is there's a number of different packages out there from different companies. The one that we like that we've been working with lately is a company. It's a plan called the Champ Plan. And what it does is it enables companies to offer their employees a lot more benefits that sit alongside of their existing benefits and do a lot more for the employee. So think about this. If I come to you and I, as a potential employer and you as the potential employee, and I say, I want to bring you on our company. This is X number of dollars per year, which is probably about the same as you got offered by that company down the road. But we're also going to include some additional things. For example, you're going to have zero copay telemedicine for you and your family. So you get sick, you don't have to go into an urgent care and pay them a $100 copay or a $150 copay. It's free. If you have an employee who has a wife and say 2 kids, let's face it, kids are constantly getting sick. It's just the matter of being a parent.
And getting hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if I can take away those copays so you're not having to come out of pocket, that can be a $250, $400, $500 swing per month that's not coming out of your pocket. That basically just put another $500 in your pocket. Then I say, and by the way, all of the prescriptions for you and your wife and your kids, they're all free too. So again, now you're not having to come out of pocket for the copays for your blood pressure medication or your cholesterol medication, or if your kids have an allergy medication or things like that, you're not having to come out of pocket for that. So it's another few $100 swing that you're saving per month. Mm-hmm. So now the employee is like, wow, I'm getting all this stuff. Then you go, and by the way, you also get telemedicine for health too, or for your mental health too. So say you want to talk to a counselor, instead of having to find one who will take your insurance, which can be a real big fight. Literally, you pick up the phone, you open up the app, you call into telehealth medicine, and now you've got a mental health person that you can talk to anytime you want to. Mm-hmm. And again, it's free of charge. So you're talking, a potential swing of $1,000 or more per month. But then I tell you, on top of all that, Mr. Potential Employee, by having all of these things, you're actually getting more money in your pocket because the Champ Plan actually saves you taxes. So you'll actually get, on average, $150 extra in your pocket each month on top of all those additional benefits. It becomes pretty easy for the employee to look at it and go, wait, so I get more money, I get more benefits, and I get the same take-home pay as I would from another place, plus all the extras? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So attracting that key employee becomes a lot easier. And then for the employer on the flip side, the employer saves almost $600 each year in FICA taxes per employee. So if you have 300 employees, let's say, and you're saving $600 per year, it's $573.60. And that's guaranteed savings. So you as the employer are saving almost $600 per employee that you offer this to. That makes a pretty big swing.
Well, yeah, it's $180,000.
Exactly.
That's a significant amount of money.
Exactly. So think about that, and especially in today's environment where, let's face it, a lot of employers are looking at either cutting employees or cutting hours or things like that because you're looking at inflation that are hitting your costs in terms of materials and equipment. You're looking at all these other things that are impacting. It's like we were talking to one employer about a month ago. They were actually looking at cutting benefits because they needed to cut roughly $100,000 per year in costs. We showed them how with the Champ Plan they can add additional benefits and the tax savings pay for the benefits that they were looking to cut.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer right there. And from the employee standpoint, now you have employees that were about to lose some of their benefits, now having those same benefits plus extra and more money in their pockets. Suddenly retention just got a whole lot easier.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, and your free prescriptions and free telemedicine. I mean, those are big deals. Well, and if you've got multiple children, not having to drive to the offices
exactly
is probably a heck of a benefit too.
Oh yeah, well, and here's the other thing that we found too. And let's face it, there's some really big companies that are using this right now. Amazon's using it. Piggly Wiggly Supermarkets is using it. Whatchamacallit? Domino's Pizza is using it. Some big companies. And so, they've actually partnered with, I'm sure you've heard of ADP. Everybody knows ADP. ADP has partnered with them to roll it out to their clients, but also rolled it out for their own employees. So, you look at a company like that, they're not going to take any risks. They're not going to take any chances. That they've had an ERISA attorney look at everything, make sure it's squared away, good to go. So when they sign on and they start taking a look and offering it to their employees and their clients, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
So, I think it goes a long way to showing the value inherent there when a company that's as big as ADP or as big as Amazon is offering it to their employees. It's like, wow, maybe we need to take a look at this.
Well, let's talk about the insurance side. I know we've had conversations in the past about using insurance to provide for a longevity bonus and provide for a better retirement as a way to keep an employee that once you've got them in your business, if you want to keep them for another 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, how do you help businesses use insurance to create those type of situations?
So, here's the interesting thing about insurance is, we as America today, the second somebody mentions insurance, their eyes glaze over and, they stop listening 9 times out of 10. What people don't realize is prior to the Great Depression, that's actually where the majority of Americans kept their savings, was in cash value life insurance. There's some products out there right now that pair very well with certain strategies to provide those perfect, what we refer to as golden handcuffs, where you have that key employee that you want to keep on the payroll because you value them. You say that, hey, this is somebody that I want to have in my organization long term. You know that as a company, it's going to be very hard to replace that person. And if you can replace that person, it's going to be very hard, very expensive to try to find the replacement, train the replacement, get them up to speed, get everything in place. Honestly, 9 times out of 10, it costs as much as the yearly salary of that employee just to find and train the replacement. So it's very, it behooves you as the employer to keep that employee if you can. There's a number of ways to do it. One of the ways that we really like right now is it's a product called Kaizen, which is basically, I'm sure you've heard of premium financed insurance. I think one of the best examples of premium financed insurance is Jim Harbaugh. If you're a football fan, a lot of people don't realize that Jim Harbaugh isn't getting paid a regular salary. He's actually getting paid by a loan from the university to him to buy insurance, which he will then cash out over time as tax-free loans. So he's going to literally get paid millions tax-free. And one of the nice things with, normally you can't even look at something like that unless you've got, 10 million in assets. Most companies won't even look at you for premium financing on an insurance product unless you've got a lot of money behind you. What Kaizen allows us to do is to talk to our clients who are in that $100,000 a year range, whether it's executives or business owners, shop owners, things like that, and bring that same tactic, bring that same product to those Main Street kind of guys instead of just Wall Street kind of guys. Bring the things from the corporate America down to middle America, if you will. And so what it allows us to do is to offer premium financing, which allows you to get a much bigger policy, which means much more growth in the policy over time. And because it's what's known as an IUL, an indexed universal life policy, you don't have to worry about the markets. Because let's face it, if you look at the market right now, the stock market's kind of a scary place to be in right now. You look at how much the value of the market has dropped over the last few months. I'd be scared to death if I had a traditional 401k or retirement account. With an IUL, you lock in the gains every year. So even if the market crashed 50%, you're not going to lose from where you locked it in at the start of the period. Nice thing there is you can go to the employee and say, hey, Mr. Employee, I value you. I value you as a member of this organization. I want to keep you here for the next 10 years. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy this Kaizen policy, which is a premium financed life insurance policy. And at the end of the 10-year period, I'm going to transfer that policy to you. Okay, great. So the employee looks at it and goes, okay, so I have a policy that's worth X number of dollars at year 10 or year 11. Okay, sure, I'll stay around for that period of time. The nice thing for you, the employer, is you don't have to come out of pocket for all the premiums for that policy. You only have to pay year 1 out of 5 years. So you pay year 1, the bank pays for the next 4. Now you've got this big policy that you can hand on to the employee when they stay for the whole period. It's a win-win. You get to retain the employee that you want. You get to do it at a very price advantage point. The employee ends up getting a nice big nest egg that when they decide they want to retire, they can then use towards their retirement planning. It's really just a win-win across the board.
Nice. Well, that's a good segue into retirement planning. So for a dealership owner, or a group owner, or a C-level executive, or realistically, even the general managers and the people that might be the beneficiaries of the plans we're talking about now, when they reach that retirement age and it's time to retire, how can they use these same types of strategies, and what do they do next? Like what now?
So there's a few things there.
Yeah.
And I think it segues into something you and I have talked about before, which is the state of retirement planning in America today. Let's face it, a lot of Americans look at their retirement planning and they say, well, I've got a 401k. I'm set. Or they go, well, I'm going to have Social Security. I'm set. I think it's kind of scary when you hear that. And every time I hear that, I kind of cringe. 401ks made a lot of sense in the 70s and 80s. And here's why. With a 401k, you're not avoiding the taxes. You're just pushing them off to the side. You're saying, hey, I'm going to pay them at a later date, which made a lot of sense in the 70s and 80s when they really started coming into vogue, because in the 70s and 80s, you knew that the tax rates were really high and they were getting ready to drop really quickly. So if you could defer those taxes, it made a lot of sense. The problem is, if you are pushing your taxes to the side right now to a later date, and you look at what's going on with tax rates in America right now, you look at what's going on with the deficit right now, I think it's pretty safe to say by the time most of us retire, tax rates are going to be a lot higher. So that's one thing. The other thing, and this is the part that really scares me, is when you take a look, at what the average American has saved in their 401k and realize that's what they're planning to do with their retirement. The average American, and here's where it gets scary. If you look at 401ks in America today, the average size of a 401k is roughly $127,000, which sounds like a lot of money. Until you realize that you're only supposed to pull out between 3 and 4% per year in order to not completely break that 401k and go broke. So now you're looking at $3,000 to $5,000 per year that you're pulling out.
Not a lot.
It's not a lot because it was never intended to be a sole retirement account. It was intended to augment your pension, but pensions have kind of gone the way of the dodo.
Yeah.
So now when guys are planning on that 401k to retire from,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen. But here's where it gets even scarier. That's the average size of a 401k. The median size, which is the size that the average person has, is roughly 34 to 37k.
Wow.
You're not going to be able to retire on 34 to 37k.
Now, is that the average of everybody that from 18 to 65?
No, that's actually retirement age.
So that's people that are getting ready to retire.
Right.
The median account is
median
under
size.
$40,000. So the largest group of Americans are going to go to their retirement with the ability to pull out around $1,200 a year.
If they're lucky.
If they're lucky.
Right. And think about this. They're pulling out 3 to 4% per year just to keep from destroying that account. Let's look right now at what's going on with inflation. Is inflation higher or lower than 3 to 4%?
Yeah.
So suddenly they realize that they're actually working backwards from where they need to be. So Kaizen, things like that are a great start. It's a good nest egg that you can use. The other thing is there's a number of great products out there. There's a number of great ways to manage your money. One of the things that we push all of our clients on, and we really recommend strongly, is if you look at the way the rich manage their money, one of the things that they never do is they never use their own money. If you look at, whether it's Warren Buffett, whether it's Elon Musk, what have you, look at Elon Musk buying Twitter. The first thing he did was reach out to start arranging some loans to buy Twitter. He's not pulling it out of his money. He's getting other people's money to do it. Retirement's the exact same way. If you can use leverage to your advantage, you can use it in a smart way, then you can actually get much better returns on that retirement planning. But here's the key. You can't do it with a 401k. So you need to take a look at being smart with the way that you're managing it, how you're managing it, using other people's money, and then you use what we refer to as buy, borrow, die, which is you buy assets, you borrow against those assets for your cash flow, because here's the thing. A loan isn't taxed. That's something that the rich figured out long ago. It's one of those, Wall Street knows it, but Main Street doesn't. Corporate America knows it, but middle America doesn't. And that is, if I take a loan, I'm not getting taxed on that. So if I have, for example, I'm Jim Harbaugh, and I have $20 million sitting in an IUL, and I borrow $10 million from that IUL, which is the life insurance policy that the university got him, that $10 million that he has in his pocket, he can spend however he wants, that's tax-free. And that loan gets paid off when he passes away. That life insurance policy just paid off that loan. So he has $10 million to do whatever he wants with. Same idea for, use a Kaizen policy, the same idea. Now you've got, say, $100,000 in the Kaizen policy. You use that to invest smartly and wisely and manage your money smartly. Now you've got a lot more cash flow versus you got a 401k, you can only pull $100,000. You can only pull $3,000 to $4,000 out of. Give you an idea, my mom was, she had a 401k, managed the usual way. She actually had a great advisor. The guy was one of the top advisors in the state of California, like consistently, awards every year. I took a look at her retirement account at the start of last year, and I realized my mom was going to be dead broke in under 7 years. Because every year, she was having to liquidate part of her assets to pay for her everyday living expenses. Which means every year, you're dwindling how much money that you're actually earning on. We completely restructured everything, same amount of money. We actually cashed out her 401k, and this isn't something I'm recommending somebody do just tomorrow on their own. Talk to somebody. But if you know what you're doing, if you take the time to do the research, you have the right consultancy you can work with. We cashed out her retirement account. We moved it over to a regular investment account. We used leverage, and now my mom earns roughly $300,000 a year every year. Doesn't matter if the market goes up, down, or sideways. She's going to make the same amount of money every year, and she's not having to dwindle the amount in her investment account every year in order to get that. So she could theoretically get that same amount of money from now until she turns 120 without having to worry about running out of money.
That's you had mentioned to me in the past, that's one of the issues that people in retirement face is if the market does go down during your retirement, and just say you have 100 shares, and now they were worth $100, now they're worth 50. Well, if you have to sell some of those shares to get out some money,
yeah, you're locking in those losses.
You lock in the losses.
Exactly.
But with some of the products that you recommend. For instance, you've spoken about the covered call option, where you can invest into ETFs and then use covered calls to create an income stream. Could you tell us a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, so there's a number of ETFs out there that use covered calls to provide some protection against the market volatility. And the main key there is that you're actually pulling your income stream from dividends rather than from the liquidation of assets. So if the ETF I use, it uses covered calls to protect itself so you don't have as much volatility. So say the market drops 20%, but you only drop 3%. But your dividends stay the same, no matter what the value of the stock is. If the stock becomes $15 or it's $25, the dividend you're pulling out stays the same. So in fact, what you look at is if you look at the market volatility, if you're investing this way, and you realize, hey, the market went down, that's actually kind of a good thing, because if I'm getting, say, $1 for each share of stock I've got, and the stock just became $15 instead of, or the ETF rather, became $15 instead of 25, when I get my dividend distribution, now I can buy more of those ETFs, at a lower price. So that means that I'm actually going to make more on my dividends moving forward versus when the price was higher. So you look at it's kind of odd because it's kind of an inverse view of what you're used to. You're used to looking at the stock dropping and going, oh God, I'm going to have to lose money when I sell. It's going to cost me money. I'm going to go broke. I mean, all those things that you worry about. Quite honestly, now I look at market volatility. I'm like, yeah, just go down a little bit more. Just go down a little bit more, because I know that I've got a dividend coming in a few days, and that dividend's going to buy me more shares of that ETF, which means it's going to produce more income down the road.
That's interesting. Let's go back to the now that we kind of talked about some different ideas. Let's talk about a success story. Can you maybe share a story, and you don't have to name the name of the business owner, but can you share a story about how you helped a business owner to attract people?
Yeah. In fact, not just attract people, but retain the guys that he does have, and actually do some really, really fun stuff. We're actually working with a shop right now in Georgia. Fantastic guy who thought that he was going to have to work basically until he was 70 and then maybe pass it on to his kids. His kids were working to try to slowly buy the shop from him. And kind of the usual, nickels and dimes here and there to try to build up the value towards the shop. But what we did was we sat down with him. We said, okay, you have this many employees. First of all, have you done your ERC? And he was like, no, I was told I didn't qualify.
Wait, let's define that. The ERC is the Employee Retention Credit. And that's from the COVID. That's from COVID, and that's the program where it was PPP or ERC, and then it was PPP and ERC if you qualified,
right?
And then it was PPP and ERC, and it's much easier to qualify.
Correct.
So I'm sorry, I just want to make sure the viewers knew what
ERC
was.
Yeah. And so the interesting thing there is he was told, you don't qualify for ERC because you still made a profit. I was like, okay, hold on a second. First of all, who told you that? He goes, well, my CPA told me that. I'm like, does your CPA specialize just in ERC? He goes, no. I go, okay, well, we work with firms that specialize just in ERC, and they have between 96 and 97% success rates in getting people ERC. He was like, wait, what? I went, yeah. In fact, let me ask you this. Did you have any supply chain issues over COVID? He was like, well, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I know. You owned a shop. I think anybody who owns a shop knows that there was a lot of supply chain issues over COVID. He's like, yeah. Like, okay, did you have any problems retaining folks or keeping folks or finding new workers? He's like, well, yeah. Like, did you have problems getting people to come into the shops because of COVID? Well, yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say you would qualify for
Yeah.
those employee retention credits. So, we worked with him. We're working with him and one of our ERC partner firms to get him the credits that he deserves, that his company deserves. We're then working with him with the CHAMP plan to provide additional benefits to his employees because he wants to provide more benefits to the employees that he has. He also likes the idea of the additional tax savings because that's additional money he can use. So what he's going to do is use those tax credits and use the ERC credits, and he's going to take those to buy some Kaizen policies as golden handcuffs to retain some of his top techs because he has some top techs that he really wants to keep a hold of. But let's face it, there's a lot of competition for good guys right now. Especially good top techs are very hard to keep because everybody's trying to recruit them.
Yep.
So what he wants to do is give those golden handcuffs, buy some Kaizen policies he can then pass on to his workers after they've stayed for a set period of time. The employees love that because now they've got additional benefits because of CHAMP. They've got additional money that they know is going to be in their pockets in the future because of Kaizen. He was then able to get a separate policy, which he's using to fund a buy-sell agreement to sell the company to his kids when he wants to retire. And the nice thing is, the whole thing is funded because of the ERC credits, the tax savings from the CHAMP plan, and the premium financing for Kaizen. He's quite honestly getting everything for pretty much no money out of his own pocket. It's all getting taken care of.
Wow. Now on the policies, like the policies for the buy-sell, is the policy on the business owner or is it on the people that are going to buy the business? Like who is the actual death benefit associated with?
So it can actually be both ways. And it comes down to whatever makes the most sense for the business at that time. Generally, it's going to be on who's buying it, but I've seen ones where it's done on the person who is selling it. So it can be both ways. Sometimes it's on both. It really just depends on what's best for the business and for that client.
I mean, I guess it would make sense to have it on the individual that's buying it from the standpoint of, that way that individual gets the loan to buy the business off of the policy. But I could also see it working better if the owner was not in perfect health. What if he dies next week instead of in 5 years?
Exactly, and that's the other thing too is sometimes it'll be on the owner because that way what happens is if he passes away, it pays for the company, and then the company gets the proceeds from selling the company go to their whoever is left as their dependent, whether it's their wife, their kids, or whomever. So that way they get paid for the company and they can pass on the company to the next owners without having to worry to try to run it themselves.
Gotcha. So if the owner dies, then his estate would get the funds from the purchase.
Correct.
But the owner of the policy would be the buyer, and the policy would be on the owner.
Correct.
And so I got you. So
yeah.
Okay. So you can do it, I guess, depending on the health and the age and probably each situation, you might recommend something different or even a combination of the two, maybe.
Exactly.
Cool. Now, for the employees, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but once somebody is retired or they've sold their business and they're retired, how do they change the way now they've got these policies? I guess so they're gonna take loans against the policies they have. Hopefully they'll get some Social Security, whatever 401k or whatever else stuff they have. But with the money that they have now that they're retired, is the covered call ETF the plan? Is real estate the plan? Like how do you? If I just retired, what conversation would you and I have?
So really, the conversation comes down to what your goals are, what your what your stomach for risk is, and what's going to be best for you. I've got some clients that are all about, hey, I want maximum growth. I'm willing to take some additional risk because I want maximum growth. And so for clients like that, then we take a look and we say, okay, if that's the case, then let's take a look at trading crypto, or let's take a look, like we're working with one company right now and doing some really kind of interesting and intriguing things with crypto trading. You and I talked about that offline earlier. And for the clients who are not averse to some risk, that's a great way to go. If you're willing to take just a little bit of risk, but you want to have some additional, protections, then the ETF trades, like we were talking about before, is a great way to go. Real estate is always a smart investment, especially because the tax write-offs. One of the things that the REMii Group in particular focuses on is tax avoidance and tax mitigation. In fact, our co-founder, Mark Kwan, actually wrote the book on tax avoidance. It's called The Top 10 Ways to Avoid Taxes. It's an Amazon bestseller. And so, Mark really kind of focused on that, and he did a great job with that. And so it all comes down to what works best, because you can do some really interesting things with tax avoidance with investment properties. You look at, for example, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act and what it does with bonus depreciation and things like that. It gets very interesting very quickly in how much money you can save on your taxes by doing that. Right. So, real estate, insurance, investments, all of it kind of works together. It's not, do I do just this, or do I do just this, or do I do just this? It's a matter of how do you make it mix together in the right ratio for you. Somebody, it might be, put 50% in stock, put 50% in crypto because they want that maximum growth. Or it might be a matter of 25% here, 25% here, 25% here, 25% here. It really comes down to what your goals are, what your risk profile is, and we kind of sit down with each client to figure that out for them.
Cool. Well, that's a ton of information. For everybody watching this, I think it's safe to say that that if you need help, find help, and if you need a plan, AJ'd be happy to help you. But
yes, I would.
it's very important to talk to someone who has experience in these areas.
And that's really the thing is, and it's one of the things that we really kind of pride ourselves in. If anything, we describe ourselves as an educational agency, because the vast majority of Americans, unfortunately, get their information, get their education on finances from the wrong sources. It generally comes from one of two places, either from banks, which, let's face it, banks are not your friends. They give you a credit card they charge you 20% on, but they give you a savings account that you earn 1% on. Are you ever going to get rich with that? No. It's because they don't want you to. They want you indebted to them. That's their goal. Mm-hmm. Or you're going to look to your family. You're going to look to your Uncle Steve, who has probably $500 in a savings account and maybe $25,000 in a 401k. And he's going to tell you the same things that he was taught by his dad, who was taught by his dad, who was taught by his dad, which, let's face it, is just a multi-generational spiral into poverty. Mm-hmm. And so, what we like to do is to educate people, show them how money really works, show them how banking really works, and really kind of go from there. Mark actually wrote another book called Rich Man, Poor Bank, which is all about how the banking industry, aims to keep us poor. Mm-hmm. And how you can, avoid that by being smart about how you use your money. And so that's one of the things we really kind of pride ourselves on, is teaching people how to use their money and be smart about it.
Well, AJ, thank you for joining us today. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we say goodbye?
No, I think we kind of covered everything and then some. Thank you for having me here, Brian, and thank you for everything you guys are doing at Babcock's.
Well, thank you for joining us today for this AutoSuccess Executive Spotlight. I'm Brian Ankney, your host, and today my guest is AJ Merrifield from the REMii Group. Hope to see you again soon.